Welcome everyone to today's webinar and thank you for joining us. We know your time is precious and we appreciate you spending it with us. Today we are presenting an introduction to EMU and a version 4.1 update. This will be presented by Haydn, Faltyn and Michael Gliana. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in the GoToMeeting control panel. I'll raise them for discussion at the end of the presentation. Please also put yourself on mute during the presentation. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Haydn Faltyn.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, no matter where you are in the world. Sincerely appreciate you choosing to spend some time with us for the next hour or so. Michael and I are pretty proud of the fact that a number of weeks ago we launched the latest version of EMU version 4.1. And today we're going to take the opportunity to take you through some of the core functionality of that particular platform, but more importantly, how it's being used by a number of our customers. Kind of a day in the life of, so that hopefully you guys can build a case internally for the way in which EMU can improve your lives, either as people who own BroadWorks platforms or people who use other people's BroadWorks platforms, but fundamentally simplify your lives through a more efficient and more fundamental way to manage the complexity of the BroadWorks platform. And so what we'd like to do over the next 30 minutes or so is try and crunch through some slides coupled with some demonstrations of the EMU platform itself. And importantly, in about half an hour, maybe 40 minutes time or so, open up the lines and give you guys an opportunity to collaborate with Michael and the rest of the team who are on the call as well to ask any other particular questions that you might have. Kerry will be collecting questions as we go, so please don't hesitate to drop a couple of questions into the chat window, which Kerry will walk us through in about 30 to 40 minutes time or so. If I could just indulge for a second and talk about why does EMU exist, and describe the problems that we're trying to solve for our customers around the world. And the fundamental fact is the BroadWorks platform is super powerful, super flexible, and super complicated as well. And for many of the people who own and operate the platform, there is a multitude of complexity to be managed, and the interfaces that have been available to date have been cumbersome and problematic, and sometimes even dangerous. And equally maybe even inflexible in terms of the role that they have in terms of interacting with the platform. EMU exists to try and remove the need for custom tools, custom development, custom labour, and throwaway activity, and turn all these use cases that we're soon to describe to you into a product-based offering. In our world, that is the EMU platform, and it stands for Extraction, Manipulation and Update. And when you, over the next half hour, appreciate what's capable when we are able to extract and manipulate and update en masse, then you can start to see some of the use cases that Michael will take us through, which really do drive significant savings, improvement in customer responsiveness and accuracy. The other thing that we're seeing is that it's allowing customers to do things they've never been able to do on the platform before. Some of the use cases we've designed have said to be not able to be done. We've proven otherwise and now productize those capabilities into EMU functions. And we'd like to show you those now and have Michael Gliana, the CTO of BroadSource, take you through a day in the life, many different types of users within our customer base, and walk through many of the different use cases we've chosen to productize on the EMU platform. So over to you, Mike.
Good day, everyone. I'm going to take you quickly through some of the functions and features that we have on EMU. EMU is a platform and it's a framework. It can support multiple functions and use cases throughout the many interfaces that EMU has. When it comes to the web interface, we have 7 main functions, which are the audit, the compare, the update, the provision, the migrate, reporting, and backup and recovery. We also have EMU extensions through the API and through plugins. EMU as a framework can do many things, but some of the main tasks that EMU can do is en masse auditing of BroadWorks users, features, and settings. It can do en masse comparison of live snapshot against the live system. It can do bulk updates of enterprises, groups, users, features, and settings. It can do provisioning, detailing, and configuration all in one click. It can migrate groups and users between different enterprises, different clusters, and different software versions. It can report on license consumption and variations, and that's multi-dimensional across all the hierarchies supported by BroadWorks. It can also do backup and recovery of individual items within the BroadWorks database, and those items could be users or even virtual users, groups, enterprises, or the whole system, and plus a lot more through extensions and APIs. Hopefully now everyone sees my login page into EMU. I'm logging here as the EMU admin. So when I log in, EMU tells me a few things. It tells me about my administration level, system administrator here. It tells me about the EMU version I'm running. It tells me about the BroadWorks version I'm connected to, and gives me a session ID that I can use later for troubleshooting and obtain logs. What we have here at the top is the EMU functions: the audit, the compare, the update, the provision, the migrate, the report, and the backup and the restore. The purpose of the audit function is to do en masse auditing of the BroadWorks features and settings. And this could be the entire system. It could be a single enterprise. It could be a group within an enterprise. Could be a user within a group, or could be any combination of the above. That means it could be a single setting for a single user, could be many settings for a single user, it could be many settings for many users, or it could be everything, the whole system. To do that, traditionally you either have to use Compilot, and to extract a single information you do a few clicks, like 2 or 3, 5 clicks, depends what the information is. And if you do it for 10 users, you multiply that by 10, and if you do it for 100 users, you multiply that by 100, and so on and so forth. Or it has been like people writing very specific scripts just to extract that information en masse. What EMU give you in the audit is a generic way of extracting any information that you have on BroadWorks en masse. I'll go back to my demo screen. So if I go on the audit, see here, I've got the audit scope as all, and that means everything on the system. So if I click on the audit, that will export everything on BroadWorks with a single click. And then I can narrow down the scope to whatever I like. For example, I can go to all enterprises in the system, but I select only a single enterprise. Say that I want to select the Acme enterprise. And I want to choose everything for that Acme enterprise to be exported, or I can choose a subset of that. I could say, for example, I want to see who's using international calling in the Acme enterprise. So I can go to users, select all the users in the Acme enterprise, and go calling plan, outgoing calling plan. So I can be very specific what I want to extract, or I can say everything, or I can say a combination. So if I go ahead and click on audit, 1 second to export all the outgoing calling plans for all the users in the Acme enterprise. So I can go ahead and download that just to see the format of the output file. And if I open that up, you should now see the Excel sheet. And if I go to the users tab in the Excel sheet, it shows me all the users here one by one with their all outgoing settings. For example, international calling, I know that they all been allowed to do international calling. And then some of them are using custom settings like Haydn. Some of them are using the standard settings. So any information that you can think of, it all displays in a nice format, human readable, very small size. You can use all the Excel functions on top of this to graph it, plot it, and we'll see example of that in reporting. So that's the audit. Next function is the compare function. Over to you, Haydn.
Yeah, so guys, I think for the first time ever, product managers, platform owners, and consumers of BroadWorks platforms have some insights they've never been able to gain. The ability to be able to audit en masse one particular configuration setting across the entire 100,000 subscribers, or the other way around, to get every single piece of information about a single user, has never really been able to be performed until now with the EMU platform. And all of a sudden now, teams get the opportunity to say yes to those requests that come from different sources, whether those sources be customer request and or product manager request. But we get that opportunity to start the analytics journey, getting to understand really why the platform's being used the way that it is. And no longer do we need to ask for custom professional services or custom scripts to be written. We have a very simple user interface now that brings all this information into a human readable form. And we all know that knowledge is power. Knowledge gives us insights. Knowledge gives us the opportunity to make some decisions and improve our situation. And so the EMU audit is just the first step of a number of steps that we can now capitalize on because of our ability to interact with the BroadWorks platform at such a deep depth. So one of those particular use cases I wanted to talk to you about was one that we just launched at the end of March as a part of our version 4.1 release. And that's a concept of EMU compare. And it's a new function that capitalizes on, again, the capability of EMU to empower a new type of stakeholder in the environment, which is the people that are responsible for responding to customers. So think of people within the contact center environment, the help desk environment, and those that need to be able to understand why a particular customer is having a problem. Traditionally, that particular sequence of events might be that a customer rings in and suggests they have a problem and that something might have been working yesterday and it's not working today. And they might spend the next 20 minutes working together to try and isolate that particular fault. The EMU compare function allows a person inside the environment to do an instant real-time comparison of a known working state of the customer's environment with the current state of the customer's environment, and to be able to show that graphically in real time within a moment's notice, so that we can stop the 20 questions and 20-minute conversation, and we can have that person empowered to be able to drive to customer resolution as quickly as possible. So over to you, Mike, to quickly show us how that might look.
Let's take a simple example. Say that someone went on Copilot or any other BroadWorks interface and changed the international calling for the user Haydn Faltyn. So disallow that. And then Haydn called in and said, I can't make international calls anymore. So someone in the operational support staff or the call center then can quickly look at what's changed on the system since they had that snapshot. If we go and reuse the snapshot that we've taken 5 minutes ago, for example, if I go to enterprises, well, I can go to all users and Haydn here. As you can see, I can search here. So these combo boxes, they're very powerful. They can do local search, they can do remote search. The number of users are bigger than 100 users, they do remote search. If they less than 100 users, they do local search. If less than 110 users, they show everyone. I can go and say calling plan, outgoing calling plan. I want to compare that to the snapshot I've taken 5 minutes ago, which I've downloaded here, just to see what's changed on the services assigned to Haydn. So I do the compare, and here we go, finished. And if I download that file, again, it's the same familiar Excel sheet, and look at that. It went through every feature settings assigned to Haydn and tells me here that the international calling went from allowed to disallow very quickly. If I didn't have EMU, my only other option would have been to go through all these menus one by one, click every item, figure out all these settings and what's changed. While with something like compare, I can do it very quickly with a single click, and not just for the end user. I could do the whole group or the whole enterprise or the entire system if I want to. And over to you, Haydn, to talk about the update.
The update function for us is the opportunity for a person to be able to push data back onto the network en masse, whether it be one attribute for every customer to be changed or for multiple attributes to be changed for one customer. We have the opportunity, as Michael's starting to allude to, that the scope of the extraction is multidimensional, and therefore the scope of the update can be multidimensional. And Michael can take us through a couple of scenarios there. Thanks, Mike.
Let's go back to the user story that we mentioned before, and now we've got someone who has gone and changed Haydn's ability to make international call, and say the operations want to take the service back and restore it to the way it was. The update function can do that very quickly, in addition to be able to make changes en masse and configure things out of the box. For example, if someone productized a new service and want the service to behave in a certain way for all users, or they put a new version of the service and they want to go to the user base and update all the existing users, then the update function is very suitable for that. Let me show you an example now. So now we've changed Haydn's international call. I can use a snapshot I've taken with the audit to set back every setting that's changed since that snapshot. So I can go to all users, or I can go just to a specific user, and I go all menus, or I can go calling plans. Just do everything in calling plans, not just the outgoing calling plan. So if I go and load the output of the audit, if the outputs are named in a way that give you a hint about the file, so this tells me this was an audit of the user in the Acme enterprise, and we only did the calling plans, outgoing calling plans, and also give me a timestamp on that file, so I know when the audit was done. So if I go and update that, it's updated Haydn, and if I go to Haydn Faltyn calling plan, outgoing calling plan, and I'll see that the international calling was restored very easily. This could be one setting like here, or could be multiple settings, or it could be thousands and thousands of settings. We know that because every user, when we do a full export of the user, we export about 1,200 settings. An export of the group might have more than 4,000 settings. Multiple users, if you had 100 users in that file, then a few groups, we're actually doing tens of thousands of settings just in a single click like that. Over to you, Haydn.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I think the opportunity for us to not only to update existing elements for people or virtual people, that is users on the network, is something we've just shown you, the ability to audit and update of existing entities. But we've also got the opportunity to create new identities on the network, and that is the concept of provisioning. And we can do this two ways. We can publish the EMU APIs to a northbound system to protect that system from the complexities of BroadWorks. Or alternatively, we can use, again, the concept of templated spreadsheet provisioning to be able to provision en masse into the network to be fully compliant with the way in which the services need to be constructed from a BroadWorks perspective. And what we do is we work with our customers to create a templated spreadsheet that defines their product definition. And then once that product has been defined, they get the opportunity to create the spreadsheets required to detail and provision each of the individual customers to be then provisioned on the network through very, very simple bulk provisioning capabilities through these spreadsheets into the EMU platform. And then the EMU platform does all the hard work around the service construction, the service orchestration, and the provisioning of those users and every aspect of those users onto the network. So do you want to show us how that works, Mark?
Thanks, Haydn. In the Acumen Enterprise, we have two groups, Melbourne and Sydney. And say, for example, that the provisioners wanted to create a new group called Brisbane with a number of users, a number of devices, phone numbers, the services assigned to those users. And this is an example of a provisioning sheet when we have a cover sheet that's macro enabled and then only a number of fields that the user needs to enter. And then when they click on the generate template, it goes and generate all the settings for them, group, the user steps. So what I can do is that I can use this simple spreadsheet and go to the provisioning tab and feed that to EMU. So EMU will go through the file, find out all the groups in that file, all the users in that file, all the devices, all the numbers, everything in that file. Will assign all the settings that I have in those features. Here it gives me some information about the stats, created one group, 2 users, and took 21 seconds. And if we go back to our enterprise and refresh it, we see another group now created. And not just the group created, that if we go to the group resources, we'll see that the group's got numbers assigned. If we go to the services, we'll see that all the services authorized. It even has service packs created and authorized. If we go to the users, we'll see that the group has users already and they have phone numbers and the extensions and the phone numbers being assigned. And if we go to a user and to the user's address, we'll see that user has actually got a device associated with it, an online port. And if I go to the user services, I'll see that, the user has already been assigned a service pack. You think of it, these things not normally take multiple systems to do that. You need your OSS BSS system to create the billable items, and then you need the detailing sheet to go and capture all the user details, and then you need your BroadWorks administrators to go in and fine-tune all the settings for a group or a user. We're doing the 3 things in one simple interface, human readable. Customers can come up with their own provisioning spreadsheet, or they use our ready-made templates and build on that.
So if we just pause there for a second and start to contemplate the capabilities that we're starting to nest together here, the ability to extract literally every piece of information from the network, the ability to update any piece of information on the network, the ability using human readable data to be able to manipulate that information means that we can implement use cases like EMU migration. And EMU migration is the concept of being able to lift groups from certain environments and move them to others. So the ability to move a group between enterprises is a common problem that all service providers face when customers have situations of mergers, acquisitions, divestitures, trade sale, whatever it might be. It is a common task for service providers, and up until now a very difficult task for them to be able to preserve all of the information about a group as it needs to head off into another zone within the BroadWorks platform, aka another cluster or another enterprise environment. And we've created what we think is, again, one of these use cases that was said to be unsolvable. It is solvable, and it's called EMU Migrate. And Mike will quickly show us the different forms by which we can migrate customer groups across the network.
So EMU supports 3 types of migration, what we call stage migration, which is a 10-step process that gets mapped to a project managed migration. Only 4 of those 10 are mandatory, the rest are optional, but they add additional verification and validation of the data before the migration. And then we have what we call single-click migration, and that's means that they're moving a group or a user from one enterprise to another, or from one cluster to another with a single click. And then scheduled migration, which allows you to schedule the migration to happen at a later time. Let me show you the single click migration. And again, you have the different type of migration. If I select a group and I go to, for example, the Acme Enterprise, and I move the Brisbane group from Acme Enterprise Cluster 1 like that, and I can give it a new name like Brisbane. And with a single click, what I'm doing here is moving the group, the users, the devices, the passwords, authentication, everything that the group has from one location to another. And that could be, again, a different cluster, a different enterprise, and could be even a different software version. It takes a little bit of time here because we're moving everything less than a minute. Then we'll be able to move that group from that source, which is the Acme Enterprise, to the destination, which is the Amatec Enterprise. We finished, and we took 44 seconds to do that. So if we go back to our Acme Enterprise, click on groups, the Amatec, see that the Brisbane M is here, and then if we go to the Acme Enterprise, it will be removed from there. It's no longer here. And if we go to the destination enterprise again, we'll see that the group was migrated with the users, and the users kept everything, even their user ID, last name, first name, all the user settings, even the incoming calls, outgoing call settings, passwords, authentication, everything, they kept it exactly the same. So if someone makes a call to this user after the migration to their phone number, their phone will actually ring without having to reset any passwords, without having to reboot any devices. Group gets migrated entirely to the destination. Next feature is backup and recovery. And over to you, Haydn.
So I guess, guys, you're seeing a sort of ever increasingly more complicated but more powerful use case emerging as we move from left to right across the functions of EMU at the top there. The key thing for us is to continue to try and find use cases which are really practical, those that are actually impacting our customers who own and operate or use BroadWorks platforms every single day. And the next one that we'd like to describe is one that is extremely powerful, and again another one that has been described in the past as not solvable, and that is the concept of being able to uniquely back up and recover a customer, aka a customer group. Today, every single one of our BroadWorks service providers does do a backup of the entire BroadWorks database, and they store that away just in case they need it. But there are many, many situations, and it happens more often than you think, where a customer will have troubles with their group, and or unfortunately that group may well even be deleted, and we see that happening time and time again. And that has caused chaos for the service provider to be able to restore, to hand build and to recreate that customer and try and get that service back looking something like what it was before it was accidentally corrupted or accidentally deleted or removed or something like that inadvertently. And so for the first time ever now, an extremely powerful use case, one that is of high value to our customers, is the opportunity to do a group backup and recovery. So over to you, Mike, to show us what that looks like.
In our Acme Enterprise, we had 2 groups. Let's go and back up the Sydney group. So I can search for a group like Sydney. So it's much easier to find an EMU like that. And then I can go and back up the whole group. And again, EMU is telling me what's doing at the moment. It's backing up the resources, all the setting, call centers, passwords, voice portals, and going to the first user, second user, and backed up everything. Give me a binary file so I can download that and keep a copy of it. So, and the reason for the binary file is it's compressed and also it's encrypted because it contains passwords. It's very suitable for offline storage. Say that someone by mistake went to compile it and deleted that whole group, just like that, just with a single click. And the problem with BroadWorks ecosystem is the backup and recovery is based on the whole database, not just on a single group or a single enterprise. But if someone deletes the whole group, there's no practical way of recovering from that, from the database backup, because the backup could be last night's backup, and from last night till when the group was deleted, people made lots and lots of changes to their system, so you can't restore the database. So what EMU does here, it really makes something that wasn't feasible before possible by allowing you to back up and recover a subset of the database, like only users or only groups or only enterprises. So if I go to the restore now and load my backup file and then download and click on restore, that will recover the group, and not just the group, everything that the group had. So once finished, then I go back to my enterprise and the group reappears with all the users, all the numbers, all the extensions, all the resources. Even if I go to the users, all the services were assigned to the users, they're back. If I go to the assigned services and it's got service back. If I go to the user devices, it's got its devices back. Everything exactly the way it was. And this could be also applied to virtual users, for example, like hunter groups or auto attendant or call centers. We can back up a call center environment and have the ability to restore that at a later stage. That's on backup and recovery.
Mike. So again, another powerful use case to increase the customer responsiveness, to protect customers from themselves, and the opportunity for service providers to have those tools needed to be responsive, particularly when the pressure's on, when certain things have occurred that may or may not be the fault of the service provider. We even have customers using backup and recovery to re-baseline lab environments. So to establish a lab, hand it over to a project team who more often than not will do things to the lab that is a little bit unnatural, and usually leave it in a bit of a state of disarray, which is okay, but the opportunity just to restore the lab back to a baseline configuration for the next project team to use is an extremely powerful use case for a service provider, because it just saves days and days and days of problems that ultimately come from testing when testing doesn't work, because there's something that was a legacy of a previous team's work. So really powerful things that are really practical and really help the teams get along with doing the work that they need to do. So thanks, Mike. I'd like to talk to you quickly about EMU reporting. EMU reporting relates to the way in which the platform is being used from a service consumption perspective, the ability to understand what's going on in terms of the way in which features and service packs are being utilised, and to really build the case for analytics, the ability for product managers and platform owners to start to understand, with insights they've never been able to see before, how the platform is being used at all sorts of different levels related to the feature consumption. It has material impact on the opportunity to manage revenue leakage, the ability to understand what the gaps are between what is provisioned on the network and what you're actually charging your customers for through your billing systems, to see that in a very, very simple correlation between these two systems. To make sure you're not burning licenses that you don't really need to, and your customers are compliant with the way in which your product's defined and how those licenses need to be consumed. So another very powerful use case, and I'll hand it over to you, Mike, just to give us a quick show of how that works.
So let's go to the reporting tab and select an enterprise. Again, it's multi-dimensional, so we can do the whole system, everything, or we can do system level, enterprise, a single group, or groups of virtual users and users. Let's do an enterprise. Let's do our favorite enterprise. And I can go, all users in that enterprise, just groups in that enterprise, or everything. So let's select everything. Click on report. And it's going through the first group, the second group, every user in the group. And again, give me an Excel file. to download. When I open that Excel file, and it gives me the service providers tab, the groups tab, the virtual user tab, and the users tab, and the licenses and the license pack allocation and assignment for each user, virtual user and group and service provider or enterprise. The problem with the traditional way of getting license users out of the system is use the CLI, and the CLI also bundles a number of features into packs. So it's very hard to determine where the actual license has gone on the system or who is using them and why we are running out of certain licenses. It's very hard to compare, what the provisioning OSS BSS is assigning to the users against what the self-care portal and the ability of the customer admins to assign additional Arcata services have done to the service. This gives you a complete view of all the levels that you have on BroadWorks and the services assigned. It also goes one step further. Now you have an Excel file, then you can use the powerful Excel functions to do things with this information. You can, for example, count it, you can sum it, you can do percentages, you can graph it, and what we have here out of the box is function to do the count of number of licenses. So for example, I know that the service pack gold there's been two users using it, and that accounts for 28% of the total users using that service pack. And this goes for every service pack, including silver, every service, so user service like alternate numbers, anonymous call rejection, and it tells who's using that service and the total number of users using that service and the percentage. The same thing goes for virtual services. If you have services assigned to Hunt Group and Auto Attendant, and they all get listed here, all the services, what's been authorized, what's been allocated, what's been assigned. And then same thing for the provider. It tells you about the service pack and limit. And also the system, we could have done the system level, and the system level give you like what you get in the CLI.
I could just share an anecdote. We have a couple of customers, a couple of which are on the call with us today, so thank you for joining us, who have a very interesting commercial arrangement with BroadSoft around the consumption of licenses and the need to be able to audit that, and for ultimately a consumption model to be applied to the way in which some service providers are paying for their BroadWorks licensing. Nothing more independent and third party as something like EMU reporting to be able to understand exactly how all the services are being consumed on the network, and you yourselves can do a correlation of that particular functionality and the way in which that you're paying for BroadSoft licensing with BroadSoft. So just a real practical use case scenario of why we think this is important for many of our customers. So thanks, Mike. The last thing we'd like to talk about before we open up over the last 15 minutes to question and answer is the concept of EMU extensions. We have shown you those important use cases that we have exposed to the user interface. And as Michael talked earlier, we have the opportunity to expose all of EMU to other platforms via a RESTful API. There's a third way in which Michael and the team have developed EMU, and that is for people to be able to develop their own custom logic and to be able to use EMU as the platform to implement that multi-threaded, if you like, or multi-phased logic to be able to do multiple tasks at once and exercise the EMU platform to do that. So I think, guys, that comes to the end of the slideware and the real live demonstration that we wanted to take you through today.
Thanks, Haydn, and thank you, Michael, for that insightful demo. As Haydn said, we're open for questions now, so if you do have any, please pop them into the chat window, and Michael or Haydn will be happy to answer them. We have received one from Leon. Leon asks, I'm a wholesaler. Can my retailers be given their own instance? And if so, how do you stop my retailers seeing each other's configs?
The answer is yes, and we have customers who are resellers or other platforms using EMU. And EMU is multi-tenanted and it follows the BroadWorks model. If you log in as a system admin, which is normally the system provider, then you see everything. If you log in as the enterprise admin or the reseller admin, then you only see that enterprise and the groups and the users that belong to that enterprise. And then if you log in as the customer group admin, then you will only see group and the users that belong to that group. Fully multi-tenanted, similar to and follows the BroadWorks hierarchy.
Thanks, Michael.
Does anyone have any questions at all?
No, you did too good a job, Haydn. There's no one's got any questions.
Ah, is that you, Nigel?
Yeah, it is.
Hi, mate. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's a great product. It looks fantastic. It's growing every time I see it, and what it does, it's yeah, you definitely got a winner. It's great.
Yeah, thank you, mate. I think the key thing that Michael said at the opening was this is a framework, and it allows us to think about use cases that just pop up all the time, and we're looking for our customers to really help us understand what's next for EMU, because as I said, once you've got the data, you can think of some amazing things to be able to do with that data, and power to you.
You can see on the screen there's a Contact Us page there. You can also contact us via our website. If you did have any questions that come to you later or any specific scenarios, we're more than happy to answer them via email or set up another demo where we can target specific scenarios. Also, we'll be running another webinar in the next few weeks, which will be covering some specific use cases where we'll be drilling down further into EMU. So keep an eye on your inbox because we'd love you to join us for that next webinar. So thank you, everyone, and we hope to see you next time.